Hey everyone, Mike Burke here with InsideRealEstatePhotography.com, and in this video I'm going to go over how I edit my Flambient real estate photography images. Alright, so this video is sort of a continuation of the last video I made where I took you through a full Flambient real estate photography shoot. We're actually going to take a couple images from that exact shoot and edit them here in this video. I already got a lot of comments on that video about how I post-process these images, so hopefully this video will shed some light on that. So if you haven't seen that video, I definitely recommend watching it. I'll link to it up on the screen right now. I have a set of Photoshop actions and a Lightroom preset which helps speed up this editing process for me, which I've made available for download on my website, along with the 2 sample images we're going to be working on in this video. I put the link to it down in the description below. So if you're interested, you can go there now and download that and follow along with this video. In the first image we'll work on, I won't use any of the actions or the preset, I'll just show you the full process without them. Then on the second image, we'll implement the use of the Photoshop actions and the preset, and I'll demonstrate how that can speed things up for you. Alright, so without further ado, let's jump into it. Alright, so I already imported my images into Lightroom and I made a collection here of these 2 images. I have this kitchen image and then we have this living room image. So these are the 2 we're going to be editing. So we'll start with this kitchen image, and again, I won't use any actions or presets on this. I'll just take you through the full process here on this first one. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is come in here and select all my images from my first image, which is all of these right here. So as I explained in the previous video, I shot 5 brackets 2 stops apart from my ambient frame as opposed to just shooting one single ambient frame, which is sort of the traditional way of doing Flambient shooting. I've been preferring to do it this way lately because I feel like it affords me the opportunity to get a more highly detailed image out of it, especially in more higher dynamic range situations. On this particular shoot, I probably could have just gotten away with a single ambient frame because there wasn't a lot of bright natural light coming in. Alright, so now that I have my images selected, I'm just going to control click on these or right click, and then I'm going to go to edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Alright, so you can see here now I have all these frames loaded up as layers in Photoshop. So first thing I want to do is select all of these by shift clicking there, and I want to go to edit and then auto align layers. I just want to have auto selected and then I'm going to hit OK. The reason we want to do this is because we're touching the camera a lot, especially during Flambient shooting, changing the settings, flash settings, whatever. So the camera's jiggling around a lot, so you want to make sure all your frames are perfectly aligned before you start blending them together. Okay, so now that our layers are aligned, the first thing I want to do is blend together our ambient frame. The first 5 frames here are my 5 brackets, so these are all the ambient frames. Then following that, we're going to blend together our flash images down here. Then finally, we're going to blend together our composited ambient image with our composited flash image. I'm going to take this 3rd bracket here, this brighter one, and bring it up to the top. And now what I'm going to do is create a layer mask. So I want a hidden layer mask, so a black layer mask. So what you can do to do that is just hold the Option key and click the layer mask button here. So that will add a black layer mask here and hide it. So now we want our brush tool. So I'm going to hit the B on the keyboard, or you can select it over here. We want to make sure we have a very soft brush, so hardness 10%, that's good. You can even go 0 here, whatever, it just needs to be really soft. And we want to make sure we have a very low flow. So 2%, that's kind of too low. I want to make it around 5%. And we want to make sure we have white as our foreground color because we're going to be working with a black layer mask here. So that will reveal what's underneath the mask. And I just want to increase my brush size to a pretty good size brush here, something like that. And now I'm just going to start painting over this, and wherever it's dark and I want to bring out more detail, the ceiling's a little dark here. I'm going to reduce the size here a little bit so you can see what we're doing. Yeah, I'm going to go across the ceiling, brighten that up quite a bit. This area over here, this adjoining room. So basically I'm painting over everything a little bit because I want the whole image to be brighter a little bit, but I'm specifically concentrating on darker areas like the stove here. So that to me is pretty nicely exposed now image here. We brought the detail out of the stove and the darker areas. Like I said, in this situation, we don't really need the other brackets, but in other higher dynamic range situations, when you have a lot of sunlight beaming through the window, and very bright overexposed spots, these really can come in handy. The darker brackets can really bring out the detail in those overexposed areas, and conversely, the dark areas, the brighter brackets can really bring out that detail, so you can really achieve a higher detailed image out of it, as opposed to just a single ambient frame, which may have some overexposed spots or underexposed spots. So that's why I like to shoot brackets for my ambient frame. I think it's worthwhile. All right, so now that we're satisfied with our ambient frame here, we can just merge all these together since we don't need these other brackets. So I'm just gonna select all the 5 brackets here. You can just go to layer and then merge layers. So that will merge them all into one. So now we just have one ambient frame to work with here that we're gonna blend later with our composited flash frames here. So I'm just gonna hide this layer for now. So now we're gonna work on our flash frames. So we have this flash frame, and then we have this flash frame illuminating more of this side of the room, and then we have this flash frame illuminating the adjoining room. And then finally we have this window pull flash frame that we're going to use to, pull this window view in. Now we're going to work on these first 2 here, this one and this one here, and just get these 2 together first. Now you can do this one of 2 ways. One way you can do it is by creating a layer mask and then taking your brush. Obviously we have white here, so we want black as our foreground color. I'm just going to hit the X key, which will toggle back and forth between those. And you can brush this in like I'm doing here and brighten this up. You can, increase your flow here or whatever. Just brush this in if you want more control over the situation. But there's a faster way of doing it, which is just simply, I'm just gonna undo that. If you just put this into lighten mode, it's just gonna automatically bring that brighter area into it and blend it together. So if you had like a hot spot on the ceiling from a flash, for instance, or an overexposed area like that, that would be a beneficial time to use just the brush and the mask like I just showed you. That way you have more control over it and you don't have to brush in so much of that overexposed area. But for this, just using lighten mode composited the 2 perfectly, so that's fine. So I'm just gonna select these 2 now and merge them. So I'm just gonna go to layer again, merge layers. So now I wanna blend this flash frame in with the adjoining room flash frame here. So I'm just gonna brush this in for the sake of demonstrating that here. So the first thing I wanna do is here, I'm gonna option click on the add layer mask button again, which will add a black hidden layer mask. So I just wanna show you what would happen here. If you try to paint this in with normal blend mode on here, you're gonna get this dark around all the shadow area here from because we're revealing this here. We wanna just reveal this in here without getting this stuff around it, this dark area here. And now if I put that layer into lighten mode, and now taking the brush at 100% flow and I paint over this area, it's not gonna pick up this darker area. It'll just pick up the lighter area inside. So I can just literally paint right over this and blend it in like that. So really quick and easy. So again, that's just something I wanted to show you so you can keep that in mind. Lighten mode comes in very much handy when you're blending these flash frames together. Now this frame could also maybe benefit from some exposure boosting here because it's kind of darker than the rest of this flash frame here. So what you can do is with this layer selected, you go to filter, I'm just gonna go to camera raw filter, and I'm just gonna boost the exposure here a little bit, not crazy. But I'm just concentrating on this area. This is all irrelevant. We're just, looking at the exposure of this room over here. So, a little bit of a boost there. So you can see it brighten that up a little bit more. All right, I'm happy with that. So again, I'm gonna select these 2 layers. I'm gonna go to layer, and then merge layers. And now we just have this window pull layer here. And we're gonna deal with that after blending the ambient and the flash frames together. So that'll be like the last thing we do. So now that these 2 are merged, I just want to do one other thing here quickly. There's sort of a bit of a orangey color cast going on here. I just want to make a global white balance adjustment to this flash layer. So I'm going to go again to filter, camera raw filter. I'm just going to bring the temp down and sort of try to neutralize that a little bit. Okay, so that's better white balance wise. And now I'm going to turn on this ambient layer here. And now we're going to blend these 2 layers together. So I'm going to put this ambient layer into luminosity mode. Luminosity mode blends lightness values in Photoshop while ignoring color information, so it helps neutralize the ambient frame's color cast. So now that our ambient layer is in luminosity mode, I'm going to again create a layer mask here, a hidden layer mask, by holding option and clicking on the add layer mask button. So now we need our brush tool once again, so hit B on the keyboard. We want a nice size brush here, pretty large. And we want our flow to be low, like a 5% again, around. And again, we want our brush to be soft. And we want to make sure we have white as our foreground color here. So I'm just going to X and toggle to white because we're painting on a black layer mask. So this is our flash image here. So we want to start painting in the ambient light here and mixing and blending the 2 here. This is where the term Flambient comes into play. We're blending flash frame with an ambient frame. I like to brush some ambient into the whole image, but especially concentrate on the areas that look overly flashy. So we're just gonna start painting in some of the ambient here, over everything here. So this cabinets look really flashy, so I was really painting. This whole adjoining room looks very flashy. This room's pretty dark in here, so I want to bring in a lot of ambient here, just to bring that up a little bit. But yeah, this cabinet over here, yeah, you can see how flashy that looks, you know. So I just look for areas that look overly flashed. A final edited Flambient image that doesn't look too good to me is one that's too flash dominant, that still looks very flashy, that wasn't blended too well with the ambient. This is like, the art of this is like using your good judgment and blending these together well enough that it looks not too flashy, but a nice blend, a nice balance between the two. So that's what you're trying to find here, is a nice balance. So if you felt like you went too far in any areas, you can just switch back to black as your foreground color and, you know, paint some of the flash layer back in, maybe more ambient here in this adjoining room. But yeah, overall, I like this blend here. I think we're in a good spot here. So now we have our ambient frame blended with our flash frame. I'm just gonna select these two and merge them. I'm just gonna go to layer, merge layers. And finally, we have this window pull shot here that I want to blend in. So at first glance here, the window view is just too dark, so I want to brighten that up. So again, with this layer selected, I'm just going to go to the camera raw filter and I'm going to brighten the exposure of this up. I'm just looking at the view out of the window here. It's just a little too intense. The window pull's too heavy. So I'm just going to brighten the exposure until I like how the view out of the window here. I can even raise the shadows a tad bit. So yeah, somewhere around there, I like that exposure. And now what I want to do with this, I want to put this into darken mode, as opposed to before we were putting in the lighten mode because we wanted to brush in the light areas. Now we want to get the darker areas. So that's why we overexpose around the window, and that's how these window pulls work. You put that in darken mode, and already you can see it's doing weird stuff all over here because we need to make a mask. It's going to ignore the overexposed areas. So we want to create a layer mask here. Again, option, clicking add layer mask, that's going to hide everything. And actually, the view out of this window already isn't so bad. So really, you don't even need the window pull here. This is pretty much fine as it is, I just want to mention. But I just want to show you the process here so you know how it's done. So now we have the black layer mask. We want white as our foreground color. But I'm going to bring the flow all the way up to 100%. I'm going to bring my brush size down. And since we overexpose all this area and it's in darken mode, you can just literally paint right over this and it brings the window view right in. So this is one of the great things about the Flambient technique. Being able to flash your windows and use darken mode to get these window pulls is awesome, because in HDR you really just have to go in there and like mask out the windows manually. So it's a very tedious, time consuming thing if you want good window pulls with HDR. So this really speeds that process up. All right, so we have our window pull blended in. So now I'm just gonna merge these two together. So now finally, I wanna deal with some color casting that we have going on here. You can see just orangey, some orangey color cast in certain areas of this image. And that's kind of the final step I do here in Photoshop before I go back to Lightroom. So the first thing I'll do is I'm just gonna hit Command J and just duplicate this layer, just so I have a copy and I have one layer that's not affected by this. So with this top layer selected, I'm just gonna go to Image, Adjustments, Replace Color. So that will bring up this little dialog box. I'll keep it over here so we can see what we're doing. And with the eyedropper, I just want to select an area that has color cast. So, you know, anywhere on this white cabinetry or whatever. And that will select all the areas it thinks are similar with similar color in it. And if you mess with the fuzziness slider, it will affect how much, it's selecting. It's sort of like a feathering almost. I usually am around somewhere between 20 and 25. I found that's like the sweet spot for this. So now I just look at this and I see, the white areas are the areas that it's affecting, the black are not being affected. So like you can see up here where it's black in this top corner of the ceiling here, I want that to be in there. So I'm just gonna hold the shift button down and select that area. So that will select even more of the area, but this is like all pretty much white here. So, but you can still see like here, it's not really selecting the hardwood floor, which is great because we don't really want that to be affected. But it's selecting most of the other white areas, so that's a pretty good selection. And this is again why I would suggest making a copy in case you want to paint some area back in from the original image that you affected with this that you didn't want to affect. So it's just good to have that copy. So now, if I just reduce the saturation, it's going to, pull out that color cast from around the image, and you can see now, if I preview this toggle, it just sucked a lot of the orange and yellowy, color cast out of this image and made the whites a lot more white. So that's great. That's exactly what we wanted. The other thing I do here usually, because once you suck a lot of saturation out, it can give it a grayish tinge. So I like, that's why you have this lightness slider. So I like to boost the lightness here a little bit. It just makes, the whites a little bit more white and bright. So you can see we got rid of a lot of the color cast there. So that's great. Okay, I didn't really affect any areas unintentionally, so I'm happy with that. So now I can simply you can merge these if you want, but I'm just gonna save this. So once the image is saved, if you go back to Lightroom, you'll see that now we have this image here in Lightroom. And once I have it in Lightroom, I just do some light global tweaks, like I might bring up the shadows a tad, highlights down a little bit. But I always add some clarity in. Usually somewhere around 20 to 25 is where I'm at, typically with the clarity. The other thing I would adjust if I needed to would be, my verticals. If any of the verticals were off, you can come down here to transform and, hit vertical. That usually straightens them out automatically. I do have to crop just a little because you can see there's some fringe around the outside where we aligned our layers in Photoshop. It just, caused a little bit of a gap around the outside. So just a little bit of a crop to get rid of that. And the last thing I want to do here is sharpening. So, if you get to an area here where you have some detail, just start adding sharpening. But I typically usually end up around 70 or so. I do this to taste. You can see the numbers on the microwave here, just like coming out as you increase. So it just brings out those minute details and brings out detail in the image. So if I toggle, these are my Lightroom adjustments that I just made here. It just gives the image that final pop and brings out those details and makes it, nice and crisp and sharp. So, all right, so that image is edited. So let's go to our second image here and edit that. And this time I'm gonna use the Photoshop actions and the preset I have in Lightroom and show you how that can really speed up this process. All right, so again, the first thing I wanna do here is select all the images in my second set here and go control click or right click. And I'm gonna go to edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. All right, so now we have all our layers here opened up in Photoshop. So the first thing I wanna make sure I have my actions panel open, which I have here. If it's not open, you can just go to Window, Actions. And down here, you see I have Flambient actions. These are my Flambient actions. I've even assigned these to the function keys, which you can do if you want to. That way you can literally just press one of the F1, F2, F3, whatever, and at a push of a button, when you start to memorize which button does what and going through this process and make things super fast, you're literally just pressing buttons and it's doing tasks for you. And so the first thing, again, I want to select all my layers and I want to align these, which I have a Photoshop action for, so I'm just going to highlight that. I could hit F1 because I have assigned it to that, but you don't have to assign your function keys if you don't want to. You can just use it, through here. So I'm just going to make sure that's selected. I'm going to hit the play button, which is much faster than going up to the menu, going in to try to find where that auto align layer is. It's just, speeds things up a lot faster. So our layers are aligned here. You can see we have some fringe going on again because it aligned them a little bit. So, we can crop that in Lightroom, but I can just crop it here real quick too. All right, so we got rid of that fringe now. So now we can start blending our ambient frame together. So again, I want to take this third. So we have these first 5 are 5 ambient brackets. So I want to brighten some of this up. Obviously it's a little dark in areas. So again, I usually start by taking my third bracket, which is a brighter bracket, and bringing it above the first bracket. And I want to blend these two together. So I want to make a black layer mask, which I have an action for here. I'm just going to play. Boom, that's done already. Super fast. Again, brush tool. I want to increase my size here to a decent size. So I want my flow to be low again, 5%. So a quick way to do that, by the way, is if you hold shift and do 0.5 quickly, it'll do 5%. You know, if you want it 100, you can just hold shift and go 100, you know, so that helps change your flow really quickly. So again, 0.5, I want 5%. I want to make sure white is my foreground color. My brush is soft, so perfect. And again, I'm just going to start blending this brighter layer in here, especially along the floor here where it's too dark. The ceiling's pretty dark, so, you know, just brightening up these areas that I want to brighten up. It gives you full control over how much detail you're getting and where, you know, by painting it in by hand. That's why I like to hand blend my HDRs too when I do them. Yeah, I like that. Overall, that blend is nice to me. So I'm going to select all my ambient frames. I don't need any of these other brackets again. So I want to merge these. So I have a merge layers action here, and I could just hit F3 and do that at a push of a button instantly. Or you can just hit the play button here. Boom, done. Really quick. So now I'm going to hide this ambient layer again. Now we want to start blending our flash layers together. So we have the adjoining room there, and I'm going to bring this layer up here because I want to blend these two together first, since they're like the same room here. So I just want to blend these two together here first. So of course you can try using light mode, which I have an action for, instead of digging through the menu to get to it. I can try that by hitting play. So you can see we have some weird kind of stripe thing going on in the ceiling here. So this might be an instance where I might be better off just to hand blend this with the brush. So I'm going to undo that. And on this top layer here, I'm just going to create a black layer mask. No reason to put this into light mode. You know, I want to make sure I have white as my foreground color. My flow is low, 5%. I'm just going to start blending some of this in. And now you can see blending this together, but we don't have that harsh line across the ceiling like we did when we just did with lighten mode. You could even back some of this down a little bit if it's overexposed a little bit over here, you know, so because this is shadowy over here on this frame. So obviously my hand is coming into the frame here, so I just want to get rid of that and change the foreground color to white, or I mean to black. Yeah, so I want to get rid of that. Get up my flow here a little bit. Just get rid of that. So those two together now are good. So I'm gonna just select the two of them, and I have merge layers action here. Play, boom, done fast. Now I want to blend in together this adjoining room here. I'm just gonna go to lighten mode, hit play. So that automatically just blended that in. It's a little intense, but it's fine. When I blend it with the ambient, this will all be good. I'm gonna merge these layers, select those, merge layers action. Now we have these window pulls. These are all just window pulls. So we're gonna deal with those later. So now we wanna bring our ambient frame in and blend that together again. So this is the great action here because it's doing multiple things. So it's putting it to luminosity mode and then adding a black layer mask. So it's like multiple steps here all together in this one action. So all I have to do is hit play here. It's gonna put it the luminosity mode and hide the ambient layer with that black layer mask. Again, I want a nice big brush here. I want white as my foreground color. I want to bring my flow down to like 5%. And I'm going to just start blending in the ambient. Obviously, over here in this adjoining room, we want a decent amount of ambient coming in here. It looks very flashy over there, especially on the ceiling. I said, I just like to concentrate on the overly flashy areas. It helps to use a bigger brush. And you could sort of, you know, you can turn this on and off just to see how much ambient you're blending in, because this is all flash with it off, and then when you put it on, that's how much ambient you added back into it. All right, but overall I'm happy with this blend, so I'm just going to select these two and now go to merge layers action, hit play. That's done. So now we have these window pulls here. So I'm just going to bring all these window pulls above this blended layer. So what you can do is just use lighten mode to blend all these together quickly. So lighten mode, merge those two. And then again, I'm going to put this next one into lighten mode. and then merge those two. So now we have all these overexposed windows. So finally I have this window pull action here, which will put it into darken mode and add a black layer mask. Again, multiple steps here that are all in one action. So at a click of a button. And now I want to get my white brush. So make sure foreground color is white. I want my flow to be at just 100%. And I could just paint right over these windows, bring them in quickly and easily. Obviously we got an issue here, so sometimes you have an issue like this where the darken mode, you know, causes somewhat of an issue, but it's easy to be fixed. So I'm just gonna, again, take my brush here. I just gotta change my foreground color back to black, and I'm just gonna click here and then shift click up here, kind of just get rid of that quickly. You know, nice and easy. All right, so now we have our window pulls in, and now I'm just gonna merge these layers again. So now, of course, I want to deal with these color casts that we have going on here. So again, before I do that, I want to duplicate this layer. I'm just going to Command J, which will duplicate the layer, just so we have a safe copy of that. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Replace Color, and I'm just going to select on the wall here. And obviously I want to get, you know, some of the ceiling in here, wherever it, you know, looks orange. I want to get a nice, I want to select as much of the white area as I can. I don't want to affect the hardwood floor too much, but again, that's why we have this safety layer in case, you know, it does affect that. But bring the saturation way down. I want to bring the lightness up quite a bit here too. You can see that maybe this lampshade got too affected by that filter. So like, that's again, like reasons like this is why you keep a copy. So, you know, you can just add a layer mask, a white, just regular layer mask, and use black brush, you know, with like a low flow. And, you know, you can just kind of blend some of this back in so it doesn't look so harsh there. Or, you know, you can bring it all back in by just lassoing this and, you know, cutting it or whatever. But again, you know, any areas like that wasn't a great job here. I'm just trying to show you what you can do so you can, you know, fix some of this stuff with that copy layer. And, you know, if it affected the floor too much in an area or whatever, you know, there's a few little areas like this here, like that can be touched up a little bit better here, but I don't want to, you know, drag this out too much. So, all right, so that's it for our blending here in Photoshop. So I'm just going to select these two layers and, you know, merge them, and I'm just going to save this document. So hopefully that showed how much Photoshop actions can really speed up the process for you. Having everything right there at the tip of your fingers instead of going all over the screen and into menus, trying to find stuff, it really speeds things up and saves you a lot of time. All right, so now we have the image here in Lightroom, and I have a finishing preset for my Flambient images right here, Flambient finishing preset. So I'm just gonna click on that. Again, you could see the difference here. Again, it's just, you know, it's bringing out sharpening and clarity and a few other slight things here. But so instead of manually tweaking all these little things to sweeten up the image here at the end, all I have to do is hit my preset button and I'm done. I can tweak it further if I need to, but most of the time all I need to do is just hit that preset button and move on to the next image. All right guys, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I really appreciate your support. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again soon on the next one.